everyone, today I'm gonna take you on an amazing journey through New York City. 4 nights and 5 days in the Big Apple, exploring rooftops, museums, parks, and even getting caught in the middle of the legendary St. Patrick's Day Parade. Let's go! But before we start, just a quick reminder, creating these videos takes time and effort. So if you enjoy this kind of content, make sure you subscribe. It's a small gesture for you, but for me, it makes a world of difference. My adventure starts in Miami, where I live. I flew out from Fort Lauderdale Airport instead of Miami International. Why? It's just because it's way less chaotic. Now, let me tell you something surprising. Security didn't require me to take out my electronics from my bag. I absolutely love that, because usually I have to take apart my entire backpack at security. I booked a $70 Spirit Airlines flight, and surprisingly everything was on time. Not to mention the landing was super smooth. As soon as I landed in LaGuardia Airport, my phone battery was dying. I quickly found an outlet to charge it for a few minutes before heading up. To get to my hostel, I took a bus and a subway, the cheapest way to reach Manhattan. Yes, I stayed in a hostel. You would ask why? 3 reasons. First of all, it's way more affordable. Then it's a great way to meet new people, and it's part of the adventure. After checking into my hostel, I noticed one of the 2 beds in my room was already taken, but my roommate wasn't there. The room itself was pretty basic, just 2 beds, a small locker, and a sink inside. Bathrooms were separate down the hall. I decided to take a shower and step out from the hostel. As soon as I stepped outside, I found myself in a beautiful evening with a wonderful temperature ahead of it. I decided to start walking to Times Square. It's really just 20 minutes walk from the hostel. On the way I came across stunning buildings like this one, which immediately grabs my attention. Before I knew it, I reached Times Square very quickly. Times Square is exactly in the way you imagine. An insane amount of giant screens promoting everything. At one point I was even interested in advertising one of my projects on these screens, but I have to say that my impression is that people there don't really care about the ads, they're just there for pictures. Regardless, I find Times Square incredibly fascinating. It's the place where street performers put on their shows and where 1,000 things are happening all around you. At some point, I was starving, so I found a Burger King on the map and decided to stop for a meal. Right after, I wanted to have a drink at a rooftop. I managed to get into a couple of them, but unfortunately I couldn't enter because I had forgotten my Florida ID back home in Miami. So I decided to return to hostel to grab my passport. When I got back, I met my roommate for the first time, a shy Asian-looking guy from Brisbane, Australia. I continued my search for a rooftop bar nearby and found one that seemed interesting. At the entrance, there was a selection process. A woman asked me which party I was attending, and I simply told, look, I'm just here to spend some money at the bar, and she let me in. With a stunning view of Manhattan and techno music and great people. There was even a horse in there. Here I met a guy wearing a cowboy hat from Georgia, Europe, and we exchanged a few words. I went back home exhausted but happy. Without making too much noise, I slipped into my bed. I wake up early, at least for my standards. Go out for a coffee and find a beautiful place where I also have eggs for breakfast. Then I head to the Battery Park for my Total Liberty tour. But just right before the Battery Park and the way to downtown, the first stop is the World Trade Center Memorial. Originally known for housing a set of iconic twin skyscrapers, they were tragically destroyed in September 11.
2001 by terrorist attacks. However, the site has been renewed with new buildings constructed to honor the memory of the original World Trade Center.
With tickets purchased online, I get in line for the ferry where we all go through a security check. Aboard the ferry and likely don't feel any discomfort. As we slow approach the stoat, I find it truly magnificent. Once I land on Liberty Island, I explore the small island which houses a Stoat of Liberty and a small museum, and also a little coffee shop. I walk towards the stoat and take some random pictures and videos. She's stunning and the view in front of her is just breathtaking. I asked the guard if it's possible to go inside the stoat, but after checking my tickets, it tells me that mine is just a general admission ticket, which doesn't allow me to get it. I tried to upgrade, but unfortunately everything was sold out. I spent about 1 hour there before heading to the small museum, which is just behind the store. I find it interesting because it details the entire history of the store, including how it was built and transported to the United States. Once outside, I take another look at the store and enjoy the company of a Korean guy with whom I take some picture in the outdoor area. Then I decided to continue towards the ferry, where I discovered a pleasant surprise. The same ferry will first take us to the Ellis Island before returning to New York City. I board again, observing the Stoat of Liberty as we move towards to the Ellis Island, which at first glance looked like it houses a detention camp. Upon entering, I discovered that it was once a major immigration center from 1892 to 1954. Ellis Island was the United States' primary immigration processing station, welcoming millions of immigrants. The museum exhibit highlights the inspections, medical screenings, and personal stories of those who passed through in search of better life. And most immigrants entered the United States through the port of New York, although there were other ports to enter in the city, such as Boston, Philadelphia, Baltimore, San Francisco, and New Orleans. The great steamship companies like the White Star, Red Star, Cunard, Holland America, and Hamburg American lines played a significant role in the history of Ellis Island and immigration as a whole. First and second class passengers arriving in New York Harbor were not required to undergo the inspection process at Ellis Island. Instead, these passengers receiving a cursory inspections aboard the ship. The theory behind that, if a person could a first and second class ticket, they were affluent and less likely to become a public charge in America due to medical or legal reasons. However, regardless of a class, sick passengers or those with legal problems were sent to Ellis Island for further inspections. After visiting Ellis Island and the Immigration Museum, I took the ferry back to Manhattan. Once back in the city, I decided to stop by the hostel for a quick shower and some rest before heading out for dinner. For dinner, I chose to try the authentic New York-style pizza. There are countless pizzerias to choose from, but I go for one nearby my hostel and I ordered a giant slice. After dinner, I want to enjoy the city view from a rooftop bar. I find one nearby of the 24th floor Not very high by New York standards, but still promising. I get there, only find it closed. I changed plans and I head to another rooftop, Bar 54, which, as the name suggests, is on the 54th floor. The atmosphere is formal, with dim lighting and refined interior design. The view from up here is breathtaking, stretching across the entire city. The cold is biting, but likely there's an heated indoor section. It's a perfect location if you wanted to step outside and take a picture from the terrace. After a couple of drinks, exhausted from the day, I head to the hostel and took my rest. The next morning I woke up and had a coffee and prepared the day of art. My first stop is the MoMA, Museum of Modern Art, one of the most important art museums in the world. The building rises in height and has a modern and essential design. Already at entrance, I am greeted by a huge suspended installation and a large decorating cloth. The museum hosts some of the most iconic work in art history. As soon as I entered, I realized that I'm standing in front of a masterpiece. Among the pieces that strikes me the most is Starry Night by Van Gogh, with its brilliant colors and sense of movement that feels almost hypnotic. There's also Picasso with his revolutionary work that marked the beginning of Cubism. Other rooms are dedicated to Pollock with his huge canvases made and splashes of colors. The museum is a totally journey through time, from the avant-garde movement to the artistic innovation, and I spent several hours here, completely immersed in this universe. After MoMA, I head to the American Museum of Natural History. I finally arrive at the museum, but I only have 1 hour to visit, which is not the best, but this is the museum that made the famous movie Night at the Museum, and as soon as I entered, I recognized many of the rooms seen in the movie. The museum is immense and hosts incredible selection. The ocean hall with enormous whales, skeletons suspended, the indigenous cultural hall with artificial from Native American tribes, and an insect gallery with rare and bizarre species. The real highlight is the dinosaur section, probably the largest in the world. Here I find the skeleton of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, gigantic and imposing, and that of perfectly preserved Triceratops. This collection is a dream for anyone who loved dinosaurs as a child, and I am no exception. Unfortunately, the time is running out and I have to leave the museum before I can explore it all. And of course, I'm a musician, so I always put music in my travels, and I decided to go to a record shop to check around if there was something interesting for me. In the past, I always used to take some records home. After leaving the museum, in the way to go to the hostel, I found this majestic and awesome St. Patrick Cathedral. So I said, why not getting inside? When I get inside, it did really surprise me. Miami doesn't really have something like this. St. Patrick Cathedral, it's a really nice piece of island in United States. I went to the hostel, and in this moment I actually met my new roommate, which is Sam, an Irish guy from Cork that decided to have a vacation in New York and explore the city itself. I was so exhausted at night, and I decided to go out in a close bar just for a drink and head home and get ready for the next day. Another giant of art is with me, the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I get there by walking through Central Park, enjoying the scenery of the small lake, which is picturesque even though I'm coming from Florida. Parks back home are much more imposing. The Met is a mammoth museum with collections ranging from antiquity to contemporary art. Student ticket here as well, and begin my visit. The European Gallery hosts masterpieces by Rembrandt, Vermeer, Monet and Caravaggio. But my favorite area is undoubtedly the Egyptian section. Here stands the Temple of Dendur, a real Egyptian temple transported piece by piece from Egypt to New York. The idea that an ancient temple was reconstructed here in an American museum is incredible. Around the temple there are sarcophagi and jewelry and ancient papyri that tells the story of pharaohs and gods. There is also a temporary exhibition of Caspar David, and I had the chance to admire his masterpiece, Wanderer Above the Sea and Fog, in person. Unfortunately, the crowd was large, but the thrill of seeing this painting in real life is priceless. After the Met, I ended the day by visiting another icon, the Empire State Buildings. The ticket cost $55, a quite high price, but I want to experience it at least once.
The main goal in Empire State Building is to get on the 86th floor and enjoy the view. And the way to go, there's a museum. You're gonna cross corridors that are gonna tell the story of the building, saying who constructed, the period, the material used, and how long it took to make this building complete.
I went up to the 86th floor and the view was breathtaking. The city stretched beneath me like an endless mosaic of streets. The wind was strong and the cold was sharp, but the feeling of being on one of the most famous buildings in the world is unique. There are higher observation decks in New York, but the Empire State Buildings is the city's history. It's the building we all recognize from movies and photos, and being here is an experience worth having. When I step out of the Empire State Building, Sam suggests we go for a drink at a bar that apparently belongs to his aunt. The story is curious. He never met this relative, who moved to the United States long before he was born, but he's convinced she owns the place, so we decided to go in and search for this mysterious aunt. At the bar we asked about her, but no one seemed to know where she was. Everyone confirms her existence, but she was like busy. Something doesn't add up. But the bartender, perhaps moved by the story or maybe complete in a small family mystery, offers us a drink anyway. We enjoy to be as each, and without solving the mystery of the missing haunts, we decided to continue the night elsewhere. For dinner we went to Popeyes, one of the most American fast food chains specializing in fried chicken. I get a spicy chicken, definitely spicy. After satisfying our hunger, we moved on to a pub to continue drinking pints and immerse ourselves in the St. Patrick Day atmosphere. which is celebrating with great enthusiasm in New York. The evening is pleasant, but fatigue sets in, so we head back to the hostel to rest. The next day, Sam and I decide to cross the Brooklyn Bridge together. However, the weather wasn't on our side. It was a rainy day, which made the filming difficult. But when we get near what I believe is the Arch of Victory, Grand Army Plaza, the rain intensifies, forcing us to change plans. We decided to continue by subway to Brooklyn. Once we arrive, we find ourselves under a bridge and take us the opportunity to stop for our lunch. After eating, we continue our walk to reach Washington Street and Icon Street in the Dumbo neighborhood. Here lies one of the most famous views of New York, the Manhattan Bridge, perfectly framed between the red bricks building. It's a scene that appears in many movies and photographs, so we can't resist stopping for a few pictures. We then continue towards the Brooklyn Bridge, turning left and stopping for more photos in front of the engineering marvel. The Brooklyn Bridge, completed in 1883, is one of the New York's symbol. With nearly 2 kilometers in length, it connects Manhattan to Brooklyn and was the world's first steel suspension bridge. It's got a design with 2 towers made of limestone, granite and concrete makes it immediately recognizable. We decided to walk across it. It's a scenic stroll with a spectacular view of Manhattan skyline and the East River. The bridge is always crowded with tourists, but the path is wide enough to walk leisurely, pace and enjoy the view. In my opinion, we took the best route from Brooklyn to Manhattan. This way you can get the chance to admire the city skylines while walking, making the experience even more memorable. Once we reach Manhattan, we find ourselves not far from the Trojan Bull, the famous bull of Wall Street. Sam suggests to take some photos, but the line was quite long, at least 10 minutes wait. We decided to skip and move to the next stop. Sam informs me that the famous St. Patrick's Day parade is happening in Central Park. Since it's my last day in the city, I want to make most of the remaining time, so we decided to go and check it out. The parade was magnificent. Marching bands, festive floats, and many people dressed in green celebrating Irish culture. I find it amusing that after seeing the same parade in Dublin, I now get to see this New York parade. After parade, we only had a couple of hours before my departure, so we decided to take the last tour around the city. The first stop was the Apple Store on 5th Avenue, a futuristic building famous for its glasses cube entrance. We took a look at the new products more out of curiosity rather than a real intent to buy. The last stop was the Grand Central Terminal. It's not just a train station, but an architectural icon of New York. Opened in 1913, it is famous for its grand main concourse with a ceiling decorated by star map and a famous opal clock in the center. The building is enormous, with 44 platforms, 67 tracks, making it one of the largest railway terminals in the world. But in addition to trains, it also hosts shops, restaurants and even whispering gallery, a special spot where 2 people can whisper from outside corners of the arch and hear each other perfectly. Time to say goodbye to Sam and head to the airport. To get to LaGuardia, I first took a subway, then from the Queens took a bus that took me directly to LaGuardia. I boarded the plane that will take me back to Miami. My mind is still full of images, sounds and experiences from New York. This trip was intense, full of encounters, discoveries, and memorable moments. Every corner of the city has a story to tell, and I already know I'll return one day. New York is not visited just once, it's lived and rediscovered always.